Well, everybody, it is time for us to do a little bit of incel psychology analysis, because I know you guys really do love these segments, and personally, I enjoy doing them, and I honestly do have some stuff to talk about in regards to this that I feel inspired to discuss, and I feel like kind of getting out there. I want to hear what you guys think of what I have to say on this. So, in regards to incels, let's take a look at this tweet. It's kind of gone a little bit viral with 128,000 likes on Twitter, and it's pretty interesting. It's captioned, "My little cousin is 12 years old and is going through his first breakup right now. 4 skull emojis." And the post from the 12-year-old cousin is, "Don't fall in love. All bitches are cheating, lying whores," is the post. And apparently he's going through a breakup right now. And the cousin, the older cousin, is sending the younger cousin, "Bro, delete this incel-ass post, LMFA." Oh! Very good response. Unironically a good response. And a lot of people are responding along the lines of this response. 12? Talking like that? Yes. Now, I've seen a few responses to this tweet that, while I agree with them, I actually have some things I want to add to them, if that makes sense. I think one of the takes I saw on it that I wanted to speak about was Merrick's take. Let me see if I can find the tweet. Yeah, that's definitely not a timeline I should show on stream. Where is it? Where is it? Wait, that's too far back. Did I miss it? I swear I saw... Oh, here it is. Found it. Perfect. So, Merrick's tweet thread about this was, I agree with it, but I do want to add to it a little bit, you know? Like, not... I want to respond to it in a not necessarily disagreeing way, but in an adding a little bit of additional context way. So, basically, Merrick quote tweets it saying it's terrifying how young it starts. Good on OP for telling him his bullshit is bullshit. However, insulting a kid usually means they will immediately shut down and not listen to you. While I do agree with that to an extent, if it's coming from an older cousin that the little cousin looks up to and sees as, like, sort of a role model they want to impress, which is often the case in situations like that, this kind of post might be exactly, or, like, this type of response might be exactly what would, like, work on this kid. But, you know, it depends. It depends. So this isn't a invalid response. Plus, he's still a kid, just not the way I would personally go about it. And this is the final statement, which is the one I wanted to talk about. This doesn't come out of nowhere. These boys are being taught this. Maybe they're learning it at home, or maybe they're learning it online. This is one of the reasons why Andrew Tate and influencers like him are so dangerous. This kid is supposedly an Aiden Ross fan. I don't doubt that either. Now, I don't disagree with anything that Merrick said here, though I do think one part of her take is perhaps a little bit reductive, and I think it might have to do with, I guess, not having the lived experience of a guy, maybe? Alright, I'm gonna give you guys the incel psychology insighting, alright? For those of you guys that don't know, I'm gonna give you all a little bit of backstory, okay? I was not anywhere near as good looking as I am now growing up. And even if I was, I don't know how much it would have helped me, because I was also, let's be honest, probably pretty autistic. You know, like, a lot of people found me annoying. I had friends, but not, like, a lot of them, and most of them were guys. And, you know, that's just how things were growing up. I was, for the most part, your average teenage guy growing up, right? I wasn't, like, particularly good looking, but I wasn't particularly bad looking. I didn't really have the courage or the riz to, like pull women or anything like that. I wasn't exactly, you know, constantly in a relationship or anything like that. And because of that, and because as a young guy who felt the influence of society basically implying that as a man, your value is tied intrinsically to but a few things. One of those things is your ability to sexually satisfy and sexually appeal to women. that is the case. And this is a feminist issue, by the way. Not like a feminist caused issue. I mean, this is an issue that feminism focuses on. This is part of the patriarchy. A lot of men feel, and a lot of men are treated as though their value as a man is tied to their sexual desirability to women. Does that make sense? A lot of guys feel this way, and it starts at a pretty young age. And this was the case for me as well, because I didn't lose my virginity till I was 18, and the way that I had sort of grown up with, like, the implication of culture and whatnot, I felt like I was basically a failure if I didn't lose my virginity at 16, you know? Like, after 16, I was like, okay, we gotta get the shit out of here. Gotta get this shit off me! You know, with my virginity, right? But that is how a lot of young guys feel. A lot of young guys feel like if they hit 18 or 19 or God forbid 20 or, oh my God forbid 21 without losing their virginity, it is over. This is not only an indication that it is over for them in the future, not just that, but also an indication to them that no matter what happens in the future, even if they do find a good relationship at some point in the future, society and culture and the patriarchy have basically conditioned a lot of young men to think that has made them a less valuable, less worthwhile man. Because they didn't have women falling over themselves to be in a relationship with them, which is, of course, the vast majority of men are not having that kind of experience. It's, you know, not even close. But a lot of guys feel like that's what they're supposed to be experiencing if they were an actually, like, I can't think of an adjective for good, a desirable man, if that's not happening, right? So that's part of it. And I was at one point in that sort of incel sphere. I consumed a lot of incel content. I sort of like fell into a lot of that stuff, right? And eventually I got out of it. And a large part of it was me leaving the right. And a large part of it was also me losing my virginity that helped with that. And I think a large part of it is that a lot of these guys see them being virgins, and a lot of them are virgins, as a mark of shame. And not only that, but the lack of many women desiring to take their virginity as well as evidence that they are lesser. And this feeds into a non-ending black hole of self-pity and self-hatred. They seek out platforms and content that validates this self-hatred online. They just lie down and rot and spend all their time like groveling in misery. That's how a lot of incels are. But that's not the end of this analysis. You see, when Merrick said this doesn't come out of nowhere and that it has to be taught, I admit that is the part that I feel I don't necessarily disagree with it. I just feel like it's a little bit reductive, right? So think of it like this. There are broadly two types of incels, as we know them online. There are the traditional incels, who are literally, as the title goes, involuntarily celibate. They are virgins, they can't get laid, and they feel really shit and down on themselves for that. But then there's the other category of incels. And that is the Andrew Tate style of incel. These are people who absolutely have no problem getting women, but it's more so that they view misogyny as a political and moral core to their like identity, right? Misogyny is part of their identity. So it's less so that they're incels in the traditional sense, and more so that they are just so dedicated to misogyny that they say and believe the same things as incels, right? And at the end of the day, both of these like categories of inceldom are based in misogyny at the end of the day. But here's where I disagree, or not really disagree, but want to add on to Merrick's take, or contradict Merrick's take. I don't know what the correct word for it is. The idea that this must be coming from somewhere and being taught. If someone as young as 12 is saying things like that, or believing things like that, or feeling that way. And that's where I think we're kind of reducing our analysis of this by quite a bit. I'm going to get a little bit red-pilled here, okay? I'm going to get super red-pilled, all right? There are some women out there that just fucking suck. They're just straight up bad people. And the things incels say about women apply to them specifically. This is just inarguably, objectively true. The problem with incels is that they take those characteristics and the idea of that like type of person, and they broadly apply that perception to all women. And that's where the problem arises, right? Here's the thing, though. A lot of young men, just like many young girls, and I'll get into my caveat here. I'm not making like a red-pilled, oh, this is a male exclusive like oppression or whatever. A lot of guys at a pretty young age are probably going to have some relationship encounters or some experiences with women that are going to leave a sour taste in their mouth. Does that make sense? Maybe they get led on, maybe they get cheated on, maybe they get, like, rejected in a way that's, like, really harsh and cruel, more so than necessary, because kids can be mean. And we're talking about kids here, by the way. These things are bound to happen, and in the same way, we accept that a lot of women are going to have bad interactions with dudes that are pieces of shit, and we understand what they mean when they say all men are trash, and, like, they don't actually hate men. Some of them do, but, like, most of them are just expressing, like, a very, I would say, valid emotion of like, upsettedness with their situation and with what happened to them, with a guy, right? And that's how a lot of these women that are like, oh, men are trash after they go through a breakup are online, right? That's not because they were taught like some misandrist propaganda. It's because they're having a emotional reaction to something personal that's happened to them, and now it's causing them to act irrationally, right? In the same way, guys are exactly the same. It's basically that's basically what I'm saying, is guys are exactly the same. A lot of guys, when they go through an experience that leaves a bad taste in their mouth regarding women, and I'm not saying like, oh, a girl doesn't want to have sex with them because, opening the door for her wasn't enough. I'm talking about, like, there are definitely some women out there that, like, actively, knowingly do things such as, like, lead guys on because they know that certain guys will have benefits that they can derive from that, right? Like, I've met tons of girls who have, like, that one guy that they're in a, friendship with, who's a mechanic, that one guy who works at this one place, that one guy who works at, like, it's very clear that this girl has, like, a catalog of guys that she's leading on for the sake of, like, getting things from them, right? And while, you can do what you want to do, that is definitely the kind of thing that, from the guy's perspective, is going to leave them hurt and feeling quite used. And I've met a lot of women who do this. There are a lot of women out there that do this, okay? This is just objectively true. And at some point, probably pretty young if you're a straight guy, you're going to encounter women like this. It's just going to happen. The problem is, a lot of these young men, because of their lack of life experience, their lack of social development, and the fact that our society has basically taught them that their desirability to women and their success rate with relationships is what, like, basically evaluates them as a man, they start to hate themselves based on the reaction they get from women in their dating life or in their potential dating life. And that's where the problem arises, that there is no outlet other than right-wing incel content for these guys in that state to go to, other than things like Andrew Tate. So the problem here isn't that this misogyny is coming from young men consuming Andrew Tate content or Aiden Ross content, etc., etc. It's more so that Aiden Ross, Andrew Tate, etc. are the only prominent people there for guys in that position who seek out that content and then get further radicalized. It takes one breakup, one divorce, just anything like that, one rejection from a girl you've had a crush on for years but didn't have the courage to say anything, and now just one no is like the end of your world. This happens to guys a lot, right? Yeah, I think I think I just wanted to add on a little bit to that take, because while I do agree a lot with Merrick's take there, and she basically said a lot of what I wanted to say on this, I wanted to add on to it, because I saw that tweet on Twitter, and I was like, I have a bit to say about this. This inspired some takes in me, right? Now, that post aside, something that I think the left could definitely improve on is trying to understand why incels believe what they believe. That's not to say making excuses for incels. It's not to say agreeing with incels. It's understanding why they think what they think. It is very easy when you see these slimy, greasy little shits online to sort of default to assuming the worst about these people, right? To think that I see a lot of people saying the reason why a lot of these young, for example, 12-year-old boys are getting into incel content, like Andrew Tate, is because they feel like they're having their power as men taken away. Really? You think 12-year-old boys are seeking out incel content because they feel like men are losing power in society? Like they think that their power over women they once had is going away, and that's what they're mad about? That's not what it is. It is not malicious hatred, for the most part, that has driven most of these guys. It's emotional pain, and in a lot of cases, mental illness. And I think it's important to understand why a lot of these guys go through certain life experiences and end up consuming this content. And I think it's important that we act as the net that catches them before they fall into it. And I think one of the things we have to recognize is sort of like, there are some areas in which men have some disadvantages over women socially. They're few and far between, but they exist, right? I'm going to give an example of this, actually. This is actually a pretty funny example. For those that don't know, my relationship with my mom is very shaky. My childhood was rough. But I had my mom visit recently, and we went out driving around Washington State. We went around Lake Washington, and we're going on a long drive, just a scenic drive to look around at the state, because I haven't been here very long, and I just want to see a lot of it, like, as much as possible. And we were driving around, and we both had to pee really badly, and we didn't feel like going home to go pee, so we decided we would stop at a park along this beautiful, like, road on the edge of Lake Washington. We would stop at a park and use the bathroom at the restroom there. Fair enough, right? So we get out of the car after parking at a nice little park on the side of the road that has a playground and, like, a little water play area for kids. But the bathroom is, like, right next to that. Like, the bathroom is, you walk, like, out the bathroom and you are literally basically in the water play area for kids. And there's just a bunch of kids, like, playing in the water, right? And me and my mom go to the bathroom, and she's like, okay, here, you go in first, and then I'll go in, and you wait for me so you can hold my purse and my phone. And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, go. And I'm like, okay. So I go into the bathroom, I use the bathroom, I come out, and she hands me her purse and her phone, and she goes into the bathroom to use the bathroom. And she always takes like 5 minutes to use the bathroom every time. So I'm sitting there, a grown-ass man, alone, standing outside the bathroom in the middle of the water play area in a playground full of kids, okay? My mom just, without realizing, like, what, like, why, this is weird, just goes in and just leaves me there. So I decide the only way I can wait for her without looking weird is to just kind of, like, walk over to the bushes next to, like, the water play area and observe the bees that were pollinating the flowers on the bush, because there are new bees from, like, what I'm used to here. And that's what I did. But eventually, like, moments before my mom walks out of the bathroom, a different mom of a different kid, arrives at the park. She walks around the corner, like, clearly having just arrived, and sees me there, just kind of standing. And it's clear that she watched me for a couple minutes. And she walks up to me. And she says, "Excuse me, sir, what are you doing here? Do you have a kid?" And I was like, "Sorry, me? What?" I was like, "What?" And I was just like, "Oh, no, I was just, me and my mom were literally just driving down the road, and we stopped to use the bathroom." She's like, "Oh, okay." And you know, she just kind of eyeballed me a little bit and then walked away. I was like, Okay, because I was holding my mom's purse too, so I think that also looked a little weird. But I think once I explained that, I think she was like, "Oh, okay, actually, it does make sense that you're waiting for your mom to come out of the bathroom," you know, because I'm holding like a woman's phone case, and a purse. And I'm just standing there like waiting. And so my mom comes out. We go to the car. I tell her what happened. She was like, "Oh, fuck, I didn't even think about that," and she actually looked offended at the fact that this random strange woman had assumed that I was some weirdo, like pedophile, weirdo, creepo dude. Because she knows me, I'm her son, she knows that I'm not some creepo, and she felt offended that some other strange woman thought that I was. And I kind of chuckled to myself when I realized that she was offended on like my behalf about that, because I've seen her act the same way about strange men in public. Like, that's just generally how women react when they see strange men in public. It may be like, you know, oh, maybe I don't want to go near this guy. Maybe they want to avoid you. Maybe they call you out like, hey, why are you here, you fucking weirdo? But, like, that's a thing that happens when you're a guy in public. And this is one of those things that I think that, like, a lot of lefty women feminists and a lot of, like, male like lefty progressives don't, like, not necessarily don't see eye to eye on, but don't understand about each other, right? I think a lot of lefty guys understand it, but a lot of lefty women don't understand it because they haven't experienced this aspect of it. Basically, I think from the perspective of a lot of guys, the idea of, like, having to accept that as a guy, a lot of women are going to assume the worst about you as a stranger, it's like, it feels offensive to you. And you're like, why should that be the case? For example, how many times, if you're a guy in chat, have you been walking out in public and you're like, say it's nighttime or it's just like an empty sidewalk and you happen to be walking like 10 feet behind a woman and it's very clear she's like looking behind herself and like trying to get away from you because she's like assuming the worst about you and creeped out by you? In situations like that, I find a bench and I sit down and wait for the woman to walk like a mile ahead. And I just let it roll off me that clearly that woman thinks I'm a fucking weirdo. And that's just something you kind of have to live with as a guy. And it's an unfortunate truth, but it hurts. It's something that a lot of guys are going to realize pretty early in, like, some point in their life as they get older, that a lot of women are going to assume the worst of them as male strangers, and it's going to hurt. And a lot of that is going to that's going to make them feel oppressed. It is. It's going to make them feel discriminated against and oppressed. And that's a large part of what will push a lot of these guys towards inceldom as well. Definitely understandable. Like, I hope nothing that I've said here has been, like, poorly worded, because I've been doing my best to basically word my position on this as well as I can. Does anybody in chat disagree? Do you guys, like, understand what I'm saying so far? Xanderhall, I realized it as a 12-year-old boy when a woman called the police on me for walking through her yard to go to my friend's house, and I got held at gunpoint by the police. Yeah, like, there's just... I think there's a disconnect between a lot of feminist women and a lot of progressive and feminist guys who, like... A lot of guys just kind of experience that, and, like, when they try to explain it to women who are feminists, it can kind of come off as, like, sounding like you're complaining about how awful it is to be a man. But I think it's important when we advocate for feminism and fight against, like, misogyny, that we understand why misogyny crops up. We have to understand how these people think, why they think the things they think, how they see the world. We have to be able to see and understand things how they do in order to fight their rhetoric the most effectively. And I think that's very important. As a matter of fact, there was a post recently, or a clip recently, of Asmongold. And as much as I've got my disagreements with Asmongold, especially lately, he said something recently that I no doubt I'm sure it comes from, like, some, you know, chuddy aspects of his political opinions, but I think he's actually pretty right here, if, you know, wording it kind of in a mean way. And I think this take is something that I saw a lot of lefties disagreeing with in the replies, but I think it's pretty objectively true, and I think it's also an aspect of like, what pushes a lot of young guys into misogynistic spheres online.
But if somebody asked me themselves why they're not getting more viewers, then yeah, I would sure do it. Let me link you guys this video. Yeah, I would look like a huge dick if I did that. Some people want themselves. Well, here's the thing, right? You want to know a really, really uncomfortable, shitty truth? Is that if you're ugly, people won't like you. And this is even more true for girls. So if you're really fat or really ugly, it doesn't matter how funny you are, people just aren't going to like you. They don't want to look at you. That's it.
So, as cruelly worded as that was, that is to a degree true. It's not true for everybody in the sense that nobody is going to like you, but it's true in the sense that people will not like you. I have literally seen posts on Twitter where people explain the reason they hate me is because they don't like the look of my face. There are people that just think I'm ugly, and that's why they hate me as a content creator. That's just the reality of it. It doesn't even matter how good looking you are. The worst, even if you're objectively, like in the societal construct way, pretty good looking, there will still be people whose standards you don't meet, and they'll still think you're ugly and just hate you for that one reason. This is simply pretty privilege. It exists for women and men. The difference is, all right, this is one of the core differences, one of the core disconnects, all right? Hypers in chat, if you're a guy and you have a small collection of the random compliments you've gotten from women that are strangers stored in your mind as permanent memories that replay in your head during your darkest hour. Hypers in chat if you're a guy and that's you. That's me. When I was like 14 years old, my dental hygienist said I had beautiful eyes. That plays in my head during my darkest hour. Like when I'm having a bad day, that memory plays in my head. Yeah. So, something that I've noticed is that there is a disconnect between the socialization of men and women in our society that I think is a distinct thing we need to acknowledge if we're going to fight against the torrent of incel ideology, okay? And if you take nothing else from my video, this is the most important thing, okay? Growing up, women, from a very young age, are constantly inundated with meaningless, hollow compliments from guys that are just... It is just a torrent of it. It is constant. And most of it is coming from a malicious place of just trying to get into women's pants, right? This is extremely, extremely common. This is the experience of a lot of women. It doesn't matter, like, how conventionally attractive you are. This is just how the vast majority of women have lived their lives. A strange guy on the street walking up to a woman and complimenting her is not special. It's just not. They've heard it a million times. And usually it's a sign that this guy's a creep and has perverse intentions. Guys, however, growing up are taught through their role models, through socialization, through everything, that as a man, your value is tied to how valuable you are to women. Sexually, in regards to your ability to support and provide, to protect, etc. Guys are basically taught that if they aren't receiving compliments from women, particularly women who are strangers that have no reason to compliment them other than genuinely finding them attractive, and it's particularly compliments about appearance that always hit the hardest, those are so few and far between for guys that they literally stick with us to the end of our fucking days. They stick with us to the end of our days. They are so special, it's like a fucking ray of light in a rainstorm. And I think that's a core difference in the socialization of men and women. For women, in being like drowned in compliments and attention from guys is creepy and weird, and it's just kind of like, it's not what you want. It's not what you're looking for, you know? It's just, it doesn't, you don't feel about it the same way that guys would, because guys have been socialized growing up to believe achieving that, but girls doing that to you, is literally paramount to achieving, like, golden godhood as a man. Men and women in this respect want opposite things in the vast majority of cases. Not always, but in the vast majority of cases, the priorities are different. Most guys want women to be constantly inundating, strange women, to be inundating them with compliments, while women would just rather guys left them the fuck alone. So I think that's a very core, fundamental fact that we have to recognize and we have to consider as part of, like, the male experience when we talk about incelism, because we're trying to stop more incels from being made. And the way they're made is young men who are having completely normal life experiences of just, you know, things that you encounter as a guy, having the feelings they have in response to that. They're victims of the patriarchy too, and their feelings in response to that are being weaponized by misogynists to further fuel the patriarchy. So that's basically my take.